Hey guys, it's CrazyComicLady here, and I thought I'd do a quick tutorial on inking because I seem to get quite a lot of questions when I do live streams on how I manage to get my line art looking so smooth and not shaky, and it's actually something I've never had a problem with, and I'm not sure why. I think it's possibly because I did a lot of comics that I put online when I was younger, so I did spend an awful lot of time inking pictures. But anyway, it took me ages to work out, I think, what people are kind of maybe doing wrong. Well, not wrong, but I guess how they're doing it. And I think what it is that people are doing, which is why their line art doesn't come out so smooth, is they're literally taking their pen and just literally going over the lines really quickly once. Just to get it done, not spending any time on it. And if you kind of, if you kind of see like the way I'm doing it, my camera quality might not be all that great, but the lines are coming out just very, very wonky, and there's no kind of detailing in it or anything. It's just all shaky and wonky. So anyway, that's I think what people are doing, which is why their pictures aren't turning out perhaps, you know, as they'd like to. But anyway, I thought I'll show you mostly what I do when I ink a picture, and I'm actually using, for this picture I'm going to be using a Copic multiliner. I'm going to be using an 0.3 and an 0.1, but I have got like a lot of other different Fineliners. I mean, it depends what you want to colour your picture with, because I find Copic multiliners, well, the black ones at least, are not good with Letraset pens. The ink will smudge really badly. So if I'm doing a picture which I'm going to colour in markers, then I always use the Letraset pens because they smudge less with the Letraset markers. But I do also have a lot of other pens as well. I've got the Copic SP multiliners in various colours because I enjoy getting various colours. And originally I had these Staedtler pigment liner pens, and I don't particularly like these because the lines are very, very scratchy when you're using them. It kind of feels like the ink doesn't flow out of these very well, and it's very scratchy and the lines are very hard, and you can't get a nice flow using these pens, so I don't recommend them that much. And I also have, like, I believe it's pronounced Stabilo, I'm not entirely sure, but these, I've always quite liked these. When I used to do my comics that I did online, I used to use these a lot because they just felt really nice to use. So yeah, those are mostly the multi-liners that I have. But anyway, back to the picture. And I know there's lots of other tutorials already out there on how to ink anyway, but I just thought I'd show my version of it. And I'm using like really cheap, rubbishy printer paper from this for this picture, so it's probably not gonna perhaps look as good as if I'd inked this on like marker paper. But basically, it's if you brace your wrist as well against the page, it gives you a much smoother movement when you do that with your hand. So I don't know if that's of any use to anyone, but I always find I put a lot of pressure through this part of my hand when I'm doing inking, just so that I can get kind of a smooth line and then use my fingers to kind of guide the pen. And I know a lot of people as well, from tutorials that I've watched, they'll do the whole thing in like a very fine nibbed multiliner, like an 0.1 or an 0.05. They'll just go over the entire line art and then come back and darken bits in certain areas and then go over it twice. I tend not to do that. I tend to focus on one bit of the picture at a time, and then I'll darken like the joins. So in this case, where the ear joins on, I made that kind of darker and stick out more. And basically I just go over the lines multiple times to thicken them up. So that's basically the technique that I'm using. So basically, I'm not sure what else to talk about in this video because I'm going to be doing pretty much that same technique that I just told you about for the whole picture. And again, just darken the joins where like the head attaches, or where certain strands of the hair would attach. And then it ends up looking quite smooth, just providing, it's better to do kind of short strokes and then just go over them a few times rather than try and do an entire line all in one go, especially if it's quite a long line, because the likelihood is it will end up wonky. And sometimes you have to be careful when you do go back over the line to thicken it up a bit, that you don't accidentally go whoa and your hand ends up all over the place, and then you end up with a gigantic thick line that you then can't get rid of. So it is about like pressure and how you angle your hand as well, because you can get some really fine strokes for like certain details, and then and then go and get thicker strokes for other details to make stuff pop out. But anyway, I kind of hope that sort of makes sense with what I'm trying to explain. I didn't really plan what I was going to say for this tutorial. I kind of feel it's self-explanatory with, you know, you want to just streak your lines out so that they're dark at the beginning and then go into a lighter line just to give a gradient effect. So I think in recent years I've enjoyed inking more than I used to. When I started my YouTube channel, I absolutely hated doing line art for pictures because it seemed to take for ages. And it should really. You should, if you're doing quite a large A4 piece of picture thing, trip over my words a bit there, but if you're doing like a really large picture, say an A4 size picture or bigger, and your line art only takes you 10 minutes, you can guarantee that you kind of haven't done it properly. Because I find with A4 pictures, the line art used to take me around 45 minutes to an hour just to do the line art. And then I kind of got better at it as I went along. I don't know if you could really see there, but I darkened the corner where it joined, so it's fading into a smaller point at the end. But yeah, I did find it's always good as well, because most people I know hate inking and they just want to get onto the colouring as well. I guess it's be quite cool if you guys get yourself some different coloured multiliners. That's always a good way to kind of increase your enjoyment of doing inking, because it becomes a lot more fun when you're having to think about what colours you need to do for like which bits. So you'd use sepia for the skin and everything, and if the character's got black hair, then use your black for the hair. And I don't know, I enjoy inking a lot more when I have to stop and think about what colours I need to use for certain bits. So anyway, that's basically the technique, is just literally darkening the joins where everything attaches, and you can always go back and add in more, like, I don't know, darker bits. So that's more or less how you ink, really, or at least how I do it. I'm sure there's other techniques as well. It depends on how much detail you want to put in, because sometimes when I'm doing pictures and I'm mostly focusing on the line art, I will do streaky lines. If I look at a piece of paper there, for example, if I do like hair, so again, this is like how not to do it, but yeah, sometimes I'll put in these like streaks into the hair with the line art, just to, I don't know, if I'm focusing more on the line art than the colour, because then I'll like it to flick your wrist and blend it out, and then you'll get an interesting gradient effect when you colour as well, providing you don't use markers that smudge your line art. I think it also comes down to paper as well. If you're using like proper bleed-proof marker paper, ironically, I think you'll find that the multiliner ink will smudge a lot more. If you're using something like Bristow board or some kind of card, your line art is less likely to smudge because the paper absorbs it. Because, I mean, there's absolutely nothing worse than you're colouring a picture and you go over it and then suddenly, like, the lips smudge everywhere and you get black smudges everywhere. It's like, kind of, you just end up hating your picture when that happens. So anyway, I think I will probably speed up the rest of the hair, because otherwise you'll get really bored watching me, as, like, I've kind of explained the technique already. You just kind of go over the lines several times and darken the corners so that it pops out. But yeah, you don't want to do just one line, because then it will end up streaky. You want to kind of take your time. and do multiple lines, and then it thickens up, which is why it's better to start, I think, go with an 0.3 or an it depends what multiliner you're using actually, because an 0.3 Copic is actually the same size as an 0.1 Letraset pen, which is kind of really weird, but their sizes are different. So you want to start with kind of not a really big fat chunky pen, obviously, and not a really really tiny pen, because then I feel you increase your workload if you ink it all with a tiny pen and then have to go over it. It seems a bit unnecessary, so I always start with an 0.3 Copic if I'm using Copics, and then just darken bits up. So anyway, I will speed through the rest of the hair, and then I think I'll probably explain a bit about how I do my eyes, but it's kind of pretty easy. So anyway, I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay, so with most of the hair done, I thought I'll just show you kind of roughly how I do kind of the larger areas, because when you do it, obviously it's a very large area and your hand can often go really shaky, so it's always best to kind of turn the paper with the pen as you're moving it. So if that makes sense, just kind of have it at an angle so that when you go around the gradient bits, you have the ability to move the paper along with your hand. It makes it easier for sliding it around. And a problem that a problem I tend to have with eyes, which I'll get to in a second as I'm nearly done with the hair, is that I always tend to struggle with the details in the eyelashes, because I know anime characters have these really beautiful eyes. And whoops. Another good thing is if you make a big mistake and it ends up too dark, is then just make the whole thing extra dark so it all sticks out more, then it kind of hides the mistake, like I just did there. Again, one of the good things of just darkening up your lines a lot is it does hide kind of the mistakes where you end up a bit shaky. But anyway, as I was saying, one of the tricky things about eyes I always found were the eyelashes themselves, because you have to have quite a small nibbed pen to kind of make them look kind of realistic and not just like a big black blob. At least that's what I find anyway. So I'll switch back to my 0.1 for the eyes. I always, when I'm doing my pictures, I always tend to save the eyes for last, as I don't know why, but I tend to have like this fear that I will mess them up, so I always tend to do the rest of the picture first and then come back to the eyes, which is usually a big mistake, because by that point I'm usually tired and bored of doing inking, so it's more likely I'll make a mistake. But anyway, I think it's kind of, anyone who's merely drawn manga and stuff probably already knows these techniques anyway, but you want to just like gently flick the corner of your pen out for these eyelashes, but not go too far, because you don't want them to get too thick and dark. So, and it's up to you how many you end up adding to it, because I know like some characters have billions of like these little eyelashes and some people only have a few tiny ones in the corner, so For my little random girl, she's just having 2 and a couple at the bottom. Something I really love about the style of anime as well is always the way the mouths look at the end. I don't really like pointy noses on my characters. I always usually do a little round dip instead because I think it looks cuter. But so, nearly done. The eyes are usually pretty easy because most of it's black, so it's okay. You can just go in with a thicker pen and darken the insidey bits. I know a lot of people, some people will like not put black in the eyes at all and will leave them mostly with colour and do it with like a gradient colour and then add white highlights with gel pens and everything afterwards. But I actually, most of the time I actually prefer there to be black in the eye. I think it, especially with a line art, it makes the picture stand out a lot more and I think it looks prettier. That's just my personal preference of it. I also have trouble with white gel pens as well and getting the little highlights that you add into the picture to really kind of stand out. I find that the white gel pens don't really sit and cover the black ink very well, or marker for that matter. I'm still tending to experiment with how I kind of add white things, white highlights. So the mouth's really easy because you just put like pretty much dots. You have a little round circular dot and then just streak it out into a smile. Or in my case, make a mess of it. Yeah, I don't really recommend inking on just cheap plain white printer paper because the paper tends to cling to the nib of your pen and it kind of gets scruffed up and it doesn't put the lines down quite as neatly as you'd like. So anyway, that's more or less how I ink my pictures and how I mess up my pictures as well. That was clever of me. So yeah, just the eye to go and I'll speed that up in time lapse and then I'll say goodbye. Hey guys, so I'm back and the picture's pretty much finished and I don't know if this was like at all helpful to anyone, but yeah, it was an experience. I haven't really done very many tutorials because I'm not really good at knowing what exactly people want to see, and most of the stuff that I could cover has already been done multiple times on YouTube already. So when your picture's finished, just I don't know, go back and tweak whatever bits you think need darkening up or anything, smoothing them out. I'm not sure how long I've been recording, so anyway, this is kind of how I do it, and yeah, don't do it like that one. Don't just do that because that won't work. It will be all strange and rubbishy. Anyway guys, I kind of hope this was slightly useful to you, and thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you all soon. Bye!